In 1 Timothy 3:16, the King James Version reads, "God was manifest in the flesh," a translation produced by a committee of over 100 credentialed scholars. A translation whose manuscript decision on that verse carries direct weight on the doctrine of Christ's deity. Now open a Bible from the same shelf, at the same price point, one produced by a single author with a personal interpretive framework. And the same verse reads differently, not because the Greek changed, but because the person rendering it did. That is not a stylistic update. That is a doctrinal shift dressed in a leather cover. 8 Bibles are on the table today. 5 that will leave you unable to answer the person sitting next to you in the pew when they ask what a verse actually says. And 3 that give you the ground to stand on when the question matters most. Starting at number 8, with a Bible whose translation philosophy is the most commercially transparent in this list. Number 8, The Message, published by Nav Press in 1993 and completed in 2002, presents a textbook case of paraphrase marketed for devotional use but frequently purchased as a primary translation. The standard edition retails between $15 and $30. Eugene Peterson, the sole author, spent 10 years producing this rendering. That single author fact is the first thing to understand. There is no committee, there is no manuscript footnote system, there is no denominational peer review. Peterson himself described his goal as rendering the Bible into the language of the street, which is a legitimate devotional aim, but it is not translation. Turn to Romans 8:28. The ESV reads, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good." The Message reads, "That's why we can be so sure that every detail in our lives of love for God is worked into something good." The shift from a tight doctrinal statement about God's sovereign orchestration to a warmer, motivational phrasing is the pattern across 800 pages of this book. The result is that a reader defending the faith from this text is defending Peterson's pastoral impressions, not the Greek. At its core, you are paying for a single author's interpretive paraphrase, not a translation committee's fidelity to source text. Number 8 sets the commercial baseline, but the next entry takes the single author mechanism into theologically charged territory. Number 7, The Passion Translation, published by Broad Street Publishing, with its New Testament, released in 2017, and the full Bible, in 2020, takes the textual liberty further into a category that several scholars have publicly documented as adding language not present in the original manuscripts. The standard edition retails between $20 and $35. Brian Simmons is listed as the sole translator. The translation philosophy statement describes the aim as a heart-level translation, a phrase that does not correspond to any recognized category of Bible translation philosophy. Test verse, John 14 gegen 6. The ESV reads, "I am the way, and the truth, and the life." The Passion Translation renders it, "I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life." The addition of 3 separate "I am" declarations restructures the sentence with a rhetorical weight that is not in the Greek text. More significantly, in 2019, the Society of Evangelical Textual Scholarship published a formal review identifying consistent additions that skew toward a specific charismatic theological framework. A single scholar document with an undisclosed manuscript base and an institutional critique on record is not a translation. Verdict: you are paying for one author's theological filter, applied without committee accountability. If you think that rendering of John 14:6 represents the ceiling on paraphrase dressed as translation, the next entry operates on a different commercial model entirely, one where the publisher's own portfolio tells the story. Number 6, The Living Bible, published by Tyndale House Publishers, with its first complete edition in 1971, establishes the pattern of a single author paraphrase that created the commercial template later titles would follow. The standard edition retails between $10 and $25. Kenneth Taylor produced this rendering as a paraphrase of the American Standard Version, not a translation from the Hebrew and Greek. Taylor himself documented this in the preface. Tyndale House, which Taylor founded, later commissioned a committee to produce the New Living Translation in 1996 as a response to the textual limitations of the original Living Bible. That revision history alone tells you what the publisher's own editorial judgment was. Turn to Isaiah 7:14. The Living Bible reads, "A child shall be born to a virgin." The Hebrew word alma, meaning young woman or maiden, carries significant weight in this verse, and the rendering choice has been a point of academic discussion for decades across Old Testament scholarship. The Living Bible's approach to that verse follows Taylor's interpretive judgment, not a committee decision on manuscript evidence. For a reader defending the virgin birth from this text, in a conversation with a skeptic, the absence of a documented committee decision becomes an immediate vulnerability. You are paying for packaging, nostalgia, and a foundational paraphrase that the publisher itself replaced. Before we move to the Bible that closes the flawed half of this list, you need 4 tests. 4 things you can check before you buy any Bible to separate a translation from a commercial product dressed as one. First, open the front matter and find the translation philosophy. Look for formal equivalents, or essentially literal. These aim for word fidelity. Dynamic equivalence, or thought for thought, means the committee chose readability over precision. Paraphrase means it is one person's interpretation, not a translation. Second, turn to 1 Timothy 3:16. If it reads, God was manifest in the flesh, the translation follows the Textus Receptus. If it reads, He appeared in the flesh, or similar, it follows the critical text. Neither is automatically wrong, but the choice tells you which manuscript tradition the publisher trusts and whether they footnoted the decision. Third, find the translation committee. A faithful translation lists dozens of credentialed scholars from multiple denominations. A paraphrase lists one author with a personal interpretation framework. The Passion Translation lists Brian Simmons alone. The ESV lists over 100 scholars. Fourth, check whether the translation has been adopted by accredited seminaries for academic study, not just for devotional reading. Translations used in scholarship are translations that have passed peer review. Every video on this channel applies these same tests. No publisher partnerships, no denominational sponsorships. The full Truth Lens Handbook is free. The link is in the description, and the QR code is right on your screen. Take a photo before we continue. Number 5. The New International Version, published by Zondervan, which operates under HarperCollins Christian Publishing, a division of News Corp, in its 1978 first edition, with a significant revision in 2011, represents the most egregious example of publisher-driven revision shaping doctrinal translation choices in a mainstream committee Bible. The standard edition retails between $15 and $40. The 2011 revision introduced gender-neutral language in over 2,000 passages. Sons of God became children of God in multiple locations. Brothers became brothers and sisters. These changes were not manuscript discoveries. They were readability and cultural alignment decisions made under commercial publishing pressure. The Committee on Bible Translation, which produced the NIV, operates under Zondervan's editorial framework, a commercial publisher with quarterly revenue targets under a corporate parent that also publishes secular titles. Wayne Grudem, who contributed to the ESV translation, documented specific NIV 2011 changes that he argued compromised the rendering of Greek generic pronouns. The NIV has sold over 450 million copies since 1978, which makes it the most widely distributed modern translation in English. That scale of distribution means its doctrinal softening touches more hands than any other entry in this list. Verdict: the premium is paid for market penetration and branding, not for the fidelity that the cover implies. Tell me in the comments which translation you read every morning, and whether you would place it with the faithful or the flawed. I read every comment. Number 4. The New Living Translation. Published by Tyndale House Publishers, in its first edition in 1996, with a revision in 2004 and another in 2015, stands out as the first entry where the committee structure is legitimate and the translation philosophy is honestly disclosed. The NLT was produced by a committee of 90 scholars from various evangelical denominations. The philosophy is dynamic equivalence, thought for thought, and Tyndale states this openly in the preface, that transparency is the meaningful difference from the 5 entries preceding it. Turn to Romans Neo, Fem. The ESV reads, "The Christ, who is God over all, blessed forever." The NLT reads, "Christ, who is God, is over all. He is to be praised forever." The restructuring is a dynamic equivalence choice, not a paraphrase addition. The scholars are named. The philosophy is disclosed. The manuscript base is documented. The NLT has been adopted by some seminary programs for introductory survey courses, though not as a primary translation for exegetical study, a distinction that reflects accurately on its dynamic equivalence methodology. Here, translation philosophy is in honest alignment with committee composition. You know what you are buying. Number 3. The New American Standard Bible, Produced by the Lockman Foundation, a nonprofit evangelical ministry incorporated in California, with its original complete edition in 1971 and its major update in 1995, takes a direct approach to formal equivalence that places it in a different tier from every commercial publisher entry in this list. The Lockman Foundation has no commercial parent company. The NASB was produced by a committee of over 50 scholars, with strong representation from Dallas Theological Seminary and related conservative evangelical institutions. The translation philosophy is essentially literal, and the Foundation has maintained that commitment across every revision without pivoting toward readability for market share. John MacArthur has consistently cited the NASB as his primary preaching translation throughout his ministry at Grace Community Church, and Dallas Theological Seminary has used it in academic curricula for decades. Turn to John 1:1. The NASB reads, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Formally equivalent to the Greek. No restructuring, no cultural smoothing. The 1995 update did modernize some archaic verb forms, without altering the essentially literal methodology. For the reader defending the faith in a doctrinal conversation, the NASB gives you a translation with a named non-profit publisher, a documented committee, and decades of seminary adoption. Verdict: the price reflects real scholarship, not a corporate imprint. If these tests are saving you from your next bad Bible purchase, a like puts this in front of more believers who need it. Number 2. The New King James Version. Published by Thomas Nelson, now operating under HarperCollins Christian Publishing, the same corporate parent as Zondervan, in its first complete edition in 1982, delivers a level of manuscript fidelity and committee transparency that separates it from both its corporate sibling in this list and from the paraphrases at the bottom. The NKJV was produced by a committee of 130 scholars, which makes it the largest committee represented in this ranking. Its manuscript base is the Textus Receptus for the New Testament, consistent with the King James tradition it updates. Thomas Nelson commissioned the translation as a modernization of the KJV's archaic English without shifting to the critical text, which means readers who trust the received text tradition have a modern English option that does not require adopting a different manuscript base. Turn to 1 Timothy 3:16. The NKJV reads, "God was manifest in the flesh," consistent with the Textus Receptus and consistent with the KJV rendering that has anchored this verse in conservative evangelical preaching for 4 centuries. The corporate parent structure is a legitimate concern that the reader should note, but Thomas Nelson's editorial team has not revised the NKJV under HarperCollins ownership in ways that alter its translation philosophy. The committee transparency, the manuscript consistency, and the academic adoption across conservative seminaries place it here. For the reader defending the deity of Christ and the textual tradition behind it, this Bible gives you documented ground. Number 1. The English Standard Version, published by Crossway, a nonprofit Christian ministry that operates independently of any commercial corporate parent, in its first edition in 2001, with updates in 2007, 2011, and 2016, delivers a level of scholarship that stands alone in this ranking. Crossway is owned by no commercial group. It is a ministry publishing house whose stated purpose is publishing without the commercial pressures that shape Zondervan's or Thomas Nelson's editorial decisions. The ESV was produced by a translation oversight committee and a review committee totaling over 100 scholars drawn from Reformed, Baptist, Anglican, and other conservative evangelical traditions. The translation philosophy is essentially literal, formally equivalent to the Greek and Hebrew. Wayne Grudem, J.I. Packer, and Vern Poythress are among the named scholars whose public endorsements carry academic weight. Turn to Romans 9-5. The ESV reads, "The Christ, who is God over all, blessed forever," a rendering that directly supports the full deity of Christ from the Greek text, and which is consistent across editions. The ESV has been adopted for academic use at Westminster Theological Seminary, the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and Reformed Theological Seminary, among others. The translation has also been adopted as the Doctrinal Preaching Bible by John MacArthur, John Piper, and Albert Mohler, not as a commercial endorsement, but as a statement of textual confidence. For the reader defending the faith with a committee-produced, essentially literal, non-profit published Bible that has passed peer review across multiple denominations, the ESV closes this list as the outlier. The commercial publishing industry has not compromised. Across the 8 Bibles analyzed, one pattern stands out. Price does not signal fidelity. A leather-bound NIV from a News Corp subsidiary and a cloth-bound ESV from a non-profit ministry can occupy the same shelf at the same price. What separates them is the committee, the manuscript base, the publisher's ownership structure, and the translation philosophy disclosed in 3 pages most readers never open. The informed believer does not begin at the cover. They begin at the front matter, the committee list, and 1 Timothy 3:16. In an industry built on packaging, knowing what backs a translation is what protects your faith. Subscribe, and the next Bible you buy will be one you examined first.